I'm Tara of taraswiger.com, and today I'm here with Vanessa Lavin of mixedmartialartsandcrafts.com, who's also the maker behind Survival Organs. She makes these adorable internal organs for you to hug or punch or feel however you feel towards your organs. I asked Vanessa to come here and talk to us today because she helps people with emotional strength training in hard times. And I know as we all pursue holiday sanity, oftentimes the holidays are time right with um, misunderstandings and tiredness. And if you're already sick and tired when you go into the holidays, sometimes they can just be a big mess of dread and expectations and more tiredness. So I wanted Vanessa to come and share a story with us and give us some tips for how to deal with it if you're sick and tired this holiday season. Vanessa, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your story? I know that you found out you were sick right before the holidays.
Yes, I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma September of 2010, and my chemotherapy lasted until mid-January of 2011. So I
Mm.
was in and out of the hospital that whole time, and I was sick for Halloween. I had just gotten out of the hospital that day.
Oh,
Thanksgiving landed, saw me celebrating in the hospital, in the emergency room, and Christmas was released for discharge from the hospital the day before Christmas Eve. And New Year's as well, I was having a blood transfusion. So I was sick for all of the holidays, like the entire holiday season. And when I felt fine, it was over. And it was the dead of winter.
oh, I'm so sorry. That must have been such a hard holiday season.
It was and it wasn't. The good thing, I do mentor newly diagnosed lymphoma patients, and I tell them if you're actually diagnosed during this time, it's good and it's bad. It's good in the sense of you kind of have mile markers already in place. And I always told myself, okay, by Christmas, most of this is behind me. I just have to get through New Year's, and by the end of January, by Valentine's Day, I know I'm going to start feeling at least a little bit more human.
Hmm.
And my recovery took most of the late winter and spring, so I knew that by the time Easter rolled around, I was going to have my hair kind of grown back in. I at least had my scalp wasn't showing anymore, and I knew I was going to feel better. The wind was going to die down. The sun will be shining. Easter was the time of definite renewal for me. So I
Yeah.
felt that because there were so many holidays, one right after the other, there were things to look forward to and mile markers that I could go, okay, I'm a third of the way there, I'm halfway there, I'm totally done, now it's recovery. And when spring comes, I will feel so much better.
Yeah.
And the bad news is, I was sick during Thanksgiving and I really couldn't eat that much. I, missed, the
Yeah.
Halloween parties, so
Right.
it's a double-edged sword, but I try to focus on the good aspect of it, of having those mile markers in place.
Yeah. So can you share with us what were some of the keys of my dog is making noise. What were some of the keys of for you for making that holiday season like bearable?
Well, one of the things that I did was I was really explicit with my family as far as what I wanted to do for the holidays. My father had passed away the year before, so
Oh.
I knew that we didn't want to really do Christmas or Thanksgiving, and since I had gotten older, and out of high school, we kind of stopped doing those traditions. But I told my mom I want a ham for Christmas for a Thanksgiving meal because I don't really like turkey. She could make a turkey for everybody else, but just get a small whole ham for me, which actually my husband ended up cooking, and it was fabulous. I said, I wanted rice and beans. I wanted all my favorite Cuban things because we don't really have an American Thanksgiving. Um, and I was very upfront, and I said, when that was over and Christmas was coming, I said, I want the house decorated, and I want my stocking from 1985 hanging up that says, Happy 1985.
I love
I
it.
was like, I want all that up, and we're gonna play Christmas music until we die because I said it has to. I love Christmas, and I want it to be a thing, and it actually worked out pretty well. just being very explicit with what I wanted. It sounded selfish, but everybody wanted to make sure I was happy. I mean, we weren't quite sure if this was going to be my last Christmas, so I said we are going all out, and it's jingle all the way.
Great.
And to the point where my husband went out Christmas Eve night to buy a 6 foot tall, pre-lit, rotating Christmas tree. He spent all night putting it together. So Christmas morning, when I woke up, I would see this crazy, rotating big Christmas tree taking up all of our kitchen, blocking my way to the bathroom, putting it in your face, and it has to be the best thing anyone has ever done for me for Christmas.
Aw.
And, I wouldn't have that kind of memory if it wasn't for cancer.
Yeah.
So I always try to kind of, make those memories, and I'm glad I did. So I always tell people, if you want to, your grandma to make cookies, ask her. You have to be very explicit. You want to make a gingerbread house, tell somebody, I want to make a gingerbread house, and we're making it, or else I'm going to be really sad.
Right. I love it. And because everybody wants, whether you're sick or not, everybody wants the people in your family to have a good holiday season. I mean,
Right.
that's why we do all the stuff and buy all the gifts and go crazy with the decorating, is so that other people are enjoying it. So, as a friend, sister, daughter, like, I want people to tell me what they want out of the holiday season. If you really like
Exactly.
that recipe I make, I want to hear it. I don't think of it as being selfish, but of like you letting me know that you enjoy something and that I can do something to make your life a little happier right now.
Right, and that's what I tell people is the problem with being so sick, either with cancer or having a close family member that passed away. I mean, whatever is that really awful time that you're in, it can be really, really isolating for most people. And what I tell my cancer mentees is, approach those friends who said, "What if there's anything I could do for you? Let me know." A lot of people want to help. I mean, that's why we form these connections with other humans. You're just going to have to assign them tasks, asking somebody if they can do your laundry, just some of the basic things, so you don't really have to worry about the dishes piling up or your significant other or your family not having anything to eat if you're the primary cook. Uh, or even just, having a friend come over and sit on the couch and watch mindless TV can keep somebody from feeling really isolated and alone on the holidays.
Yeah.
And I always feel the gift of time is the best gift you can give to somebody who is going through a hard time. You don't have to listen to them. You don't really have to have some intense therapy session and come up with the right things to say. Just sometimes saying, "Hey, I got some stupid movies from Hulu. Do you want to watch Finding Nemo?" And just relax on the couch or whatever it is.
Oh, and
You
Finding
know,
Nemo always makes me cry, so you're sure to have a
yeah.
good cry if you watch that.
Well, I mean, and maybe just having a good cry over Finding Nemo is better than having a good cry over your divorce or whatever it is. Just
Yeah.
having that time and being near people is also a big component, I think, of feeling like you're part of the larger holiday season that's going on.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. So, what didn't you do that you wish you would have done that holiday season to make it easier on yourself?
Um, I wished that, well, I had known. Well, for Thanksgiving, I had been given a spinal tap where they take out a little bit of your spinal fluid, and they also would put in some chemotherapy drugs into my spine to keep my cancer from spreading into my spinal cord. The problem was is that sometimes your body doesn't make up that loss of cerebrospinal fluid, and it
Mm-hmm.
leads to what's called a spinal tap headache. It's a really bad headache that only happens when you're standing up.
Mm.
Because I would go lay down, going, "Oh, I feel really nauseous and dizzy and my head hurts. Let me go lay down." And then I would feel better. I would get up and go, "Wow, my head really hurts." And I was like that for a few days. And then the day after Thanksgiving, I finally collapsed and we went to the ER. And
Mm.
that's when we went, "Oh, duh, it's a spinal tap headache." So I wished I had learned what was going on sooner. And maybe I could have eaten that delicious ham my husband made me for Thanksgiving. Um, so that was something I wish that I had, paid attention to. That was my second spinal tap, so I felt like I already knew everything that I needed to know. So listen to your doctors when they're telling you things to watch out for. Uh, the other thing I wished I had done, I do wish I had learned, excuse me, sooner to reach out to my friends. I learned all of this stuff about, delegating tasks and things like that. I learned that kind of towards Christmas and after, so I was
Hmm.
almost on my way out of chemo, so I wish I had learned it sooner, which is also why I'm very vocal about it, so nobody has to learn this the hard way like I did. And I wish I had invited more friends to come over to my place because I would go to other people's places going, well, I don't want to inconvenience you, and I know you have a lot to do, so can I just come with you to like Christmas shopping or whatever it was?
Hmm.
And a lot of times that would just overtax my body. Instead of
Yeah.
saying, why don't you come over here? That would have been a lot smarter. But I also
Yeah.
wanted to get out of the house and I didn't want to be home. So it's one of those,
You got to find a
you
balance.
know, yeah, it's kind of hard.
Yeah. So what would you advise somebody, yeah, other than asking for help when you need it and telling people to just come over and lay on the couch with you? If somebody's going through a hard time or they're tired or they're sick from, chemo, divorce, a really bad flu, a death in the family, what are some things that they should keep in mind this holiday season?
Well, that, they need to put themselves first. If you don't want to do Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever, don't do it. Just give yourself the permission to not go all crazy. And if you feel like you're going to regret it later, then do something small and do it for yourself and make it very personal. I think if you make it really about yourself, it just becomes not less important, but not as scary as
Hmm.
or as demanding. If you say, you know what, I am just going to have stovetop mac and cheese because it's what I love, and I'm making myself a big bowl of stuffing, and I'm just going to eat that for like a week, that's fine, or, just have your family. What we used to do was everybody made their own favorite meal for Thanksgiving,
Hmm.
and that was it. There was nothing huge, just, I wanted a peanut butter and jelly sandwich done a very specific way, and I would get out and, I'd buy myself the really fancy bread and stuff, and that was a really great low pressure way to do Thanksgiving. Especially for my mom and us, we were old enough to cook for ourselves. So maybe if you have little ones, it's not as easy. But if you have a family, I don't think anybody's going to care if they have ham and cheese sandwiches, grilled cheese
Yeah.
sandwiches. And sometimes breaking with tradition can be the best way to celebrate the holidays,
Hmm.
just to make it more fun. So
Yeah.
put yourself first. Listen to your body. If you are not up for baking 3 dozen cookies, don't bake 3 dozen cookies. It's fine. Tell that person, whoever's waiting on it, I just can't do it, and just stick to that. It's okay. They may scream and shout that their holidays are being ruined, but it's really not. They're just being, they're the ones being selfish, not you.
Right.
Um, and so that would be the second thing. And the third thing I would say is just reach out to people when you do need help. And be clear of what your limits are and say, look, I'm not up to making everybody, Harry Potter sweaters this year. And either make an IOU if you really feel like it and just make a chance to evaluate what do you really need to do to make this time special. And
Yeah.
what are your limitations and start enforcing those boundaries. It's a very healthy thing to do, and actually people will end up respecting you more for doing things that you are able to do with joy in your heart rather than doing things with drudgery and expectations and crankiness.
Right. Absolutely. Well, that was excellent advice. One other question I know that people have to deal with, and Jay's grandpa just died last October, and his grandma the
Oh,
October before that, and that's the family
oh, I'm
we
sorry
have.
to hear that.
Well, we have Thanksgiving with that entire family, lots of cousins, aunts, uncles,
Hmm.
and so there's always the inevitable, "How are you doing?"
Oh, the
How do you deal with that?
Yeah.
For my point, as being, more outside it, he wasn't my dad like he
Right.
was, all of these aunts and uncles that were there. I struggle not to do the let's talk about sad things and I'll look at you like you're pitiful. And there's another aunt there who had a stroke and is really struggling
Hmm.
verbally since the stroke. She was
Right.
otherwise completely fine, but had problems coming up with the right words. And
Hmm.
I could see she was getting a lot of that. Like, I think of it as a sad head tilt. Oh.
Yeah. Oh. Are you
So how do
okay?
you deal with that
You
when you,
told me, yeah, I'm doing fine.
yeah, exactly.
There's
What
a whole
movie is
friends
that
bit about that.
from?
It's one of the most infuriating questions because people ask that and then they don't really hear your response.
Hmm.
It's like being asked, "How are you?" at the grocery store by the checkout person. They don't really care how
Right.
you're doing.
No.
So it was very difficult for me not to scream and shout at people saying, you don't care how I'm doing now that my dad passed away. You don't really care how I'm doing. You just want to make sure that I'm like not going to die and or give you cancer. It was really hard not to get really just to explode on people, but I would always remind myself to take a deep breath, wait a moment before speaking, mostly to compose myself, and just remember that human beings are incredibly frustrating, generous, kind, giving, awful creatures. um, and people don't know what to say. And it really is up to you about how you're going to take that. Are you going to assume that they look at you in a way that's very pitying and it's almost like a negative thing? I mean, nobody really wants to be pitied. Or
Right.
are you just going to assume this person means well but is kind of dumb and just thank them for meaning well, forgive them for being kind of dumb, and just realize, next time I'm not going to ask somebody that question.
So what
And I
is
would push back and I would say, well, what do you mean? Like, how am I doing cancer wise? How am I feeling right now? Or generally, how am I feeling?
I love that. That's good. So clarify their question so that you
Very,
don't
yes.
and it'll help them clarify the question too. But so, as a person who is loving and wanting to be supportive and say something nice, what do you say to, maybe the cousin you see just once a year who found out she has cancer, or the person who just got a divorce? What do you want to hear? What did you wish people would say to you?
You know, I really liked it when people said, I'm really sorry that this has happened. And not necessarily to you, but just, this really sucks. Yeah, I'm really sorry. This totally sucks is an appropriate, I think, way of acknowledging the person's frustration that this happened as well. Because this is a really awful time, and especially this time of year with all the holidays, and if you've lost somebody or if you've broken up, it brings up a lot of painful memories. And I think just acknowledging this is a really tough time, and I'm really sorry this happened is just I think it's one of the most loving things you could say. And you're not turning that person into a victim.
Right.
It's just, you're right there with them, and
Yeah.
there's not much you can do because I would always get mad, especially after my dad passed away, that people would be like, well, I'm really sorry. What can I do? And it's like, well, nothing.
Right.
Short of curing my cancer, giving me a new immune system, it's a hard thing to say, and it's one
Absolutely.
of those. Your mileage may vary, but I think acknowledging that this is a shitty time that the person's going through, this is a tough time, and I'm really sorry, is a good way of just expressing your condolence without victimizing that person.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And that, I think just acknowledging that it's hard and not trying to cheer them up or find the bright.
One of the worst things that you could say to somebody who's going through just a really hard time is, look on the bright side, or at least he's not suffering if it's somebody who passed away, or well, this is all in God's plan, and you'll see, this will turn out for the better. It's just, even if the person is religious and believes that this is part of a divine, larger plan, it's still so annoying to hear because it makes it sound like what you're going through you either deserved, you called it upon you by, especially people who have cancer, they hear a lot, well, it's you have to stay positive or else the cancer is going to suck up that negative energy and give you more cancer. It's incredibly frustrating because it doesn't allow the person who's going through this to feel upset. And it's okay to be angry. You are going through an awful period of time in your life. And when you get through it, maybe then you'll be able to look back and glean some lessons that you've learned. Maybe you won't. Maybe you'll figure it out in 10 years' time, and that's fine. And it's okay at the present moment to be really angry with other people. Try not to take it out on them too much. It's not, your family's fault or your friend's fault, but it's okay to just feel upset, to feel how unfair it is. And it's okay to acknowledge that this is really unfair and I didn't deserve it, no matter what I may have done in my life. That's okay. So when you hear people say, oh, you'll see, it'll get better, it's just don't say that. Even if you do believe it, don't say it to your friend who's going through an awful time. They
Absolutely.
know it. They don't really need that pressure to put on that happy face. Let that kind of come from inside. I would sometimes force myself to just pretend that I was having a really good day, and that was okay, and that would actually end up lifting my mood, but it has to come from within the person, not
Right.
from on the outside, other people saying to them, oh, just cheer up or think happy thoughts.
Right.
That's something that needs to come from inside.
Yeah, and as a friend, the last thing you want to do is make your grieving or sick or tired friend feel like they have to pretend to be up when they're around
Right.
you, you know?
Exactly.
So thank you so much for sharing your story and for sharing your tips. I hope it helps everyone have a happy or at least bearable holiday season. I always say that the reason why I named Holiday Sanity is because we're not striving for it to even be like merry or happy. It's not happy holidays.
Right.
It's just let's not be completely crazy insane.
And I tell people that's the only thing you have to do while you're going through this tough time. You just have to make it out the other end alive. Just get through it. Just keep swimming. Just one day at a time, 1 minute at a time. That's all
Yeah.
you have to do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us, or me, us, me, and my dog. And have happy holidays,
You
and I'll talk to you
too.
later. Bye bye.
Bye.